Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Sue the T-Rex. Sue the T-Rex just might be one of the most famous dinosaurs ever. In 1990, paleontologist Peter Larson unearthed an almost complete skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus rex in South Dakota. It was the most intact T-Rex skeleton ever found, but this discovery is one of major greed and controversy. Larson and his team paid a local rancher $5,000 to dig on his enormous ranch. They were driving around when the SUV broke down. One of the team members, Sue Hendrickson, decided to venture out on her own on the ranch where they'd spent weeks searching for fossils while they waited for the vehicle to get fixed. Amazingly, Sue discovered a lot of broken bones up the side of a cliff, as well as 3 articulated vertebrae. After showing one of the vertebrae to her colleagues, Sue, Peter, and the rest of the team ran back to the site. It was a complete T-Rex. They spent the next few weeks carefully unearthing the skeleton, now nicknamed Sue after Sue Hendrickson. They encased the bones in plaster and then transferred them to the Black Hills Institute, which was owned by Peter Larson, where they prepared them for display. More than 80% of the skeleton was recovered, making it the most complete and largest T-Rex ever found. Injuries found on some of the bones indicated that the T-Rex had been attacked. The whole team was working on preparing the skeleton to learn more about it, but were interrupted by federal agents who ordered them to stop all work immediately. The Black Hills Institute was in trouble. They seized Sue the T-Rex and all the records related to the dinosaur and the institute. The FBI had suspicions that the team had stolen the T-Rex from federal land. The original owner denied that they had paid him. Then he said that the dinosaur was his. But to make it more confusing, his ranch was part of Indian Trust land, which only made things more complicated. So who stole from whom? And what about Sue? For 18 months, Sue remained locked up as the federal government gathered evidence against Larson and his team members, accusing them of stealing. Turns out the institute had been under investigation for years for illegally taking fossils off public lands and selling them internationally to make a fortune. In the end, 153 charges were laid against Peter Larson and 5 others on his team. Fossil theft, money laundering, and false statements to government agencies were just some of the charges. In the end, the actual owner of the ranch was declared the legal owner of Sue the T-Rex, and he made $7.6 million from the auction. Sue is now on display in Chicago's Field Museum. Peter Larson later served 18 months in federal prison for customs violations unrelated to the T-Rex. Larson still runs the Black Hills Institute of Geological Research in South Dakota, and they didn't let this snafu stop them. They have already found 10 other partial Tyrannosaurus rex skeletons. The story of smuggling fossils for millions and then getting investigated by the FBI and all of the drama in between just makes the discovery of Sue the T-Rex that much more intriguing. Number 9. Stolen fossils. In Colorado, a trailer filled with over a dozen fossils, boasting a combined value of roughly $100,000, was stolen over the weekend from in front of a Denver hotel. The 20-foot trailer had a particularly rare specimen that will be sorely missed. This was a fossil of a shark 92 million years old, valued at least $50,000. This is according to the owner of the trailer, Geodecor Inc. Other stolen fossils included a skull belonging to a predatory fish from the Cretaceous period, valued at $20,000. And finally, a stingray fossil was valued at just over $10,000. The president of Geodecor was in town for the Colorado Mineral and Fossil Spring Show when the trailer was stolen. The Aurora Police Department was quick to investigate the incident. Geodecor offered a $1,000 reward to anyone with information as to the whereabouts of the fossils. The company also said that no questions would be asked and absolutely no charges would be filed if the trailer was returned. But of course, nobody steals $100,000 in precious fossils and then brings them back. Plus, they were probably worth even more than that. Even if the thieves couldn't sell the fossils on the black market, at least they'd have over a dozen awesome relics to use as decorations in their house. So far, there has been no word on whether the fossils were ever returned or what exactly the thieves plan to do with them. Number 8. The Sleeping Dragon. In 2011, miners working in Alberta, Canada discovered something truly amazing, and as is usually the case, it was completely by accident. An excavator hit something much harder than the surrounding rock, and strangely colored lumps were coming out of the machine. The crumbled remains would come to be the most pristine and well-preserved dinosaur fossils anywhere on Earth. To make things even more exciting, the fossil was found to be a new type of armored beast. It was a petrified nodosaur that stretched 18 feet long, weighing nearly 3,000 pounds. This lumbering land animal somehow died and ended up in a river that then washed into the sea, where it sunk to the ocean floor and into mud that kept it preserved. When it was found, nothing went very smoothly. Researchers think it was fossilized whole, but after the trauma from the mining machine, only the front half of it could be recovered. When researchers tried to lift it from its resting place, where it had remained the last 100 million years, the nodosaur broke apart. After hours and hours of excavations in 12-hour shifts, the dino and the surrounding rock weighed 15,000 pounds. Then, when cameras were recording, the rock shattered. The challenge now was trying to figure out how to save it. Using plaster casts, they were able to transport it 420 miles. Good thing is that in the end, everything worked out. It was a close call, but the technicians managed to piece the dinosaur Humpty Dumpty back together again. Now you can see the bony mosaic of body armor on the neck and back of the nodosaur, and gray circles that outline the individual scales. Caleb Brown, a postdoctoral researcher at the museum, says, "We don't just have a skeleton, we have a dinosaur as it would have been." While this might have been the story of the well-preserved dinosaur that never was, miraculously it is safe and put back together. The dinosaur was ultimately put on display at the Royal Tyrrell Museum in 2017, with some witnesses claiming it was like looking at a real sleeping dragon that could awake at any moment. Number 7. Fossils destroyed. Phillip Bell, a graduate student from the University of Alberta, was almost brought to tears after the irreplaceable fossil of a duck-billed hadrosaur was destroyed. Phillip and his team from the university discovered the fossil near Grande Prairie in northern Canada. The team was planning to move the fossil sometime in July. They covered it up using all the appropriate methods and went back for it later. But when they found it again, it was smashed to pieces. Someone, likely with malicious intent, discovered the location of the fossil and purposely destroyed every trace of it. There is absolutely no way to reconstruct what Phillip and his team had found, and the chances of finding another one in the same condition are not great. Bones from the very rare hadrosaur were found scattered throughout the site or altogether missing. And to make matters worse, the paleontologists found bottles of alcohol and other leftovers all around the site, suggesting a group of hooligans had gotten liquored and thought it would be funny to smash apart a piece of history that had been sitting perfectly fine in the ground for millions of years. After the incident, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and officials with both the University of Alberta and the Royal Tyrrell Museum investigated the destruction, but so far nobody has been brought to justice for the crime. And now for number 6. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Israel Guerra and Serena Kaineth Barondo. Thanks so much for hanging out with us and supporting this channel. If you are new here and you like to hear about new and shocking discoveries, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. Number 6. A Jurassic Ransacking. The Isle of Skye in Scotland is one of the quietest and most peaceful places in the world, with virtually no crime. And yet the Isle of Skye was the recent location of a heist. It wasn't a very lucrative one, but it was still a brazen daylight robbery. Fossils dating back to the mid-Jurassic period were stolen from the face of a cliff by thieves using crowbars. This illegal removal of fossils and the ransacking of the prehistoric site has been labeled a wanton act of vandalism and one of the worst ever recorded at any site of special scientific interest, as these types of places are called. A spokesperson for the Scottish Natural Heritage claimed the incident was organized, and the thieves had searched specifically for valuable vertebrates. But what makes this incident so horrific is that the specimens ended up on eBay. Someone actually stole fossils from a protected area and then put them on eBay. Experts say the thieves were probably hunting for rare fossilized bones of marine reptiles like plesiosaurs. Cracked and broken fossils of ammonites, which obviously the thieves viewed as worthless, were found scattered throughout the scene. Unfortunately, we don't actually know how much the fossils ended up selling for in the end, or if these guys were ever busted. The truth is that stolen fossils don't really get as much attention as stolen jewels or other crimes. But if you are a fossil collector, try to find out where the fossils are coming from. Number 5. Stan the T-Rex. So remember Peter Larson and the FBI and Sue? Well, here we go again. Almost 30 years ago, a legendary pair of paleontologist brothers named Peter and Neil Larson uncovered a fossil of an enormous Tyrannosaurus rex that was 40 feet long in South Dakota. It became one of the biggest scandals in paleontology history. Just recently, the fossil, which has since been dubbed Stan the T-Rex, sold for $32 million. It sold for 4 times the original estimate. But the sale came after a very long legal battle between the brothers. In fact, all the money from the sale went to Neil Larson. His brother Peter didn't get anything. The chair of paleontology at the American Museum of Natural History, Mark Norrell, told news sources that the brothers will never get over their feud, especially now that the fossil sold for so much money. It all started with some legal troubles. The fossil was owned by the Black Hills Institute. They lent out the fossil and sold resin casts to museums. In 2015, Neil Larson, who owned 35% of the shares of the Black Hills Institute, sued the company. This is after they removed him from the board of directors because of a dispute involving shady business dealings and some alleged sexual misconduct. The Black Hills Institute was forced to sell Stan the T-Rex to pay off Neil Larson. His brother Peter was not too happy about it. The dynamic duo of fossil hunters is probably never getting back together after this whole debacle, going to show that the world of dinosaur bones can be just as dramatic as anything else. Number 4. Nicolas Cage and the dinosaur skull. Nicolas Cage has actually agreed to return the stolen dinosaur skull that he bought for $250,000 to the Mongolian government. You can't really ask for a better headline than that. According to the official records, the Tyrannosaurus Batar skull was purchased by Cage at a Beverly Hills gallery in 2007. Nobody has ever accused Nicolas Cage of wrongdoing, though we all know that this guy is maybe a little bit crazy, least of all for purchasing a stolen dinosaur skull. He got it from a gallery. They are the ones in trouble. But he voluntarily agreed to return the skull after being filled in on the circumstances surrounding its journey to America. Even though Nicolas Cage was given a certificate of authenticity from the gallery after purchasing the skull, it turned out that the I.M. Chait Gallery had been involved in purchasing and selling dinosaur skeletons illegally smuggled from other parts of the world. The mastermind behind the whole thing finally pled guilty to taking the Tyrannosaurus skeleton out of the Gobi Desert in Mongolia for the purpose of selling. The guy was later sentenced to spend 3 months in prison. And as part of his guilty plea, the black market dino dealer agreed to help prosecutors find at least 17 other stolen fossils. And if you're wondering just what exactly the Tyrannosaurus Batar is, think of a smaller and less popular T-Rex that lived 70 million years ago and what is today the desert of Mongolia. Number 3. The Bone Wars. The biggest rivalry in the history of paleontology began with Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. These two fellows started out as friends after the political turmoil of the Civil War, but after they began hunting dinosaur fossils, a feud between them would spark what is known today as the Bone Wars. The men stopped being friends after Marsh pointed out a mistake that Cope had made when assembling the reconstruction of a plesiosaur from Kansas. Cope had placed the vertebrae in the wrong place. Marsh pointed this out at the Academy of Natural Sciences. Cope was humiliated, and from then on they were rivals. Each man wanted to find and describe as many new species of dinosaur as humanly possible. Marsh even hired spies to track his nemesis' progress, while Cope rushed his findings into academic journals, often missing information or straight up lying. It got very dramatic and very public. Marsh and the U.S. Geological Survey came under fire for corruption and incompetence. Marsh tried to destroy Cope and steal his fossil collection. In the end, both men were kicked out of the scientific community. Edward Cope died sick at the age of 56, and Marsh died 2 years later with less than $200 in his bank account. Still, the Bone Wars produced a huge amount of information and set the stage for the future of paleontology. Number 2. The Fossil Heist. Yet another fossil heist has gone down in Canada. This time, a fossil worth $50,000 was stolen in the middle of the afternoon from an ammonite mine near the city of Lethbridge. The mining company is currently offering a reward for the fossil, but good luck getting it back. The heist took place almost immediately after miners recovered one of the rarest pieces of ammonite in the history of their operation. Miners took a short lunch break after pulling the ammonite fossil out of the ground. During their lunch break, two strange men appeared at the top of the open pit mine. One of the individuals came running down the side of the bank. He grabbed the fossil, stuffed it into his backpack, and then ran back up the bank and vanished. The miners did their best to chase the man down, but found themselves being threatened by another man with a pickaxe. Unfortunately, the men were forced to give up the chase. The miners identified the vehicle used in the getaway, a 1988 Chevy Longbox, and they even saw the guy's face. Still, the police have turned up nothing. The owner of the stolen fossil said the thieves had probably been extremely desperate to take such a risk in broad daylight. If you ask me, it sounds like an inside job. Number 1. Buying a dinosaur. Fossil excavations can go wrong in any number of ways. Fossils get broken or thieves steal precious artifacts. But one of the biggest threats for fossil excavations is private buyers and online auctions. According to the BBC, the rising trend of selling fossils online is a huge concern for the scientific community. Bidders are basically fighting each other to purchase Triceratops horns, teeth from T-Rex, and even tails from duck-billed dinos. The huge demand in fossils has created a breed of prehistoric poachers who are frantically digging ancient skeletons out of the ground to make a quick buck. There are some pretty obvious reasons why this is not great. First of all, these prehistoric poachers don't have the necessary skills for properly extracting dinosaur bones. Sometimes they destroy entire skeletons just to get at the teeth. They are basically doing what African animal hunters have done for years, killing the elephants to get at the tusks. But in this case, the whole skeleton would probably be much more valuable than just the tooth. Experts say the damage done by the global fossil trade is going to get worse, placing roadblocks in front of scientific advancement and fueling a criminal underworld dedicated to acquiring fossils by any means necessary, including daylight robberies. Thanks for watching! If you could, would you buy a dinosaur fossil to put on display? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you'd like to learn more about prehistoric creatures. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye!